welcome back, welcome back, welcome back to another episode of Woman to Woman with your host, Vanessa Williams Morgan. On this week episode, I know that you guys might be a little bit upset with me. I missed last week episode, but don't worry, we're back and better than ever before. Thank you so much for sticking and staying and believing in this podcast, and thank you so much for being here. God bless and keep you. So, as we jump into this week's topic, we are going to just do a little refresher of what happened not last week, the week before, when we discuss what are some of the challenges that we might have. If you have not yet listened to that podcast, run, skip up, and jump over to last week's episode, to the last episode, and listen. And if you are new and you're just joining us for the very first time, welcome. Stick and stay. And if this is your vibe, do not forget to subscribe. Now, what I want to talk to you about today is it's a funny thing about how the mind works, right? So today I want to talk to you about something that has been fascinating to me lately, and that is the human mind. And honestly, the older I get, the more intrigued I become by the brain. And in my late 30s, I find myself asking questions that I probably would not have asked when I was much younger. Like, why do we remember certain things and completely forget others? Why are smell and song and word and even a particular phrase can take you back 10 and even 15, 20 years ago? Just something that can happen and in an instant, just like that, you flash back to that memory. And probably most important, why do we sometimes think in ways that does not line up to the what we actually believe, right? So I want to talk to you about something that has been with me for last week. So the last question really got me, and it started with a memory that I had. My son, who is now 15 years old, um, this memory took place probably when he was about 5 years old. I think he was 5 years old, because when I remember, he doesn't have any teeth. In my memory, he is missing his two front teeth at the time, and I think that was about when he was about 5 years old. So my son, who is now 15, this memory took place then. And when I tell you something, that little boy was a little fresh little boy. He was very fresh and very prime, right? So because he was a little rambunctious, little fresh and outspoken child, he was just one of those children who seems to be ahead of his time. Those children who don't just accept what you say. They need an explanation, and if your explanation does not make sense to them, they will not let it go. Trust and believe me. So one evening after work, I came home with some sweets. Now, as a mother, sometimes you buy something for your child and you already know what is going to happen, right? You give them the sweets, and within 5 minutes, the sweet gone, vanish, disappear, because they're just gonna eat everything. So I decided that one night that I was going to teach my son the lesson about stewardship. So I gave him the sweets and said, "Don't eat all of it tonight. Save some for tomorrow." Just that's it. Simple. Don't eat everything tonight. Just save some for tomorrow. And as I said, I this memory just flashed back to me. So I thought I was teaching him responsibility, and I thought I was teaching him to plan ahead. I thought I was teaching him that you don't consume everything that you get in one day because you have it today. And this little boy looked me dead in my face, dead as in my face, and said, "Why tomorrow? Why we need to leave it for tomorrow when tomorrow you're gonna bring more goodies for me?" And I remember that moment because first of all I was like, "Excuse me, sir." But there was something in that statement that stayed with me. At 5 years old, he had this confidence that tomorrow would have something, right? He had this confidence in me that tomorrow I will have something to give him. He wasn't sitting there worrying, what if there is no more sweets, or what if mommy doesn't bring anything for me tomorrow, or what if this is the last time I ever get sweets. No, he simply was like, tomorrow you're going to bring me something else. It may not be sweets, it might be chips, but you're going to bring me something else. And for years, that was just a funny little childhood memory until last week. When I was studying for my exam, I had an exam last week, and one simple word came up while I was reading through my paper. And I honestly don't even remember exactly what word it was, but that word triggered this memory. And just like that, I was transported back to that evening, and I could almost see his little face, no teeth, right? And I could hear his voice. And I know when he listens to this podcast, he's gonna be so upset with me that I'm keep mentioning his no teeth, right? So it just transported me back, like to him saying, "Why? Tomorrow you will bring me more goodies." Right? And I laughed, and then something happened. I started thinking about it. I couldn't stop thinking about it from last week to present, right? I found myself reflecting on this 5-year-old boy and his response to me. And then I started looking at myself, my life, and my circumstances, my dreams, my responsibilities, my faith in God, my business, my family, and even my ministry. And I asked myself this very uncomfortable question: why am I operating in a scarcity mindset? Why am I operating in this scarcity mindset? What if it doesn't work out? What if I don't get enough clients? What if I fail? What if I put myself out there and nobody respond? What if I invest and don't get a return back on my investment? What if I launch this business across St. Catherine and it doesn't take off? What if I go bigger and have to go home? Right? Just the what if, the what if, the what if. And then I thought about my little son's statement: tomorrow you will bring me more goodies for me. And I realized something, that this little boy was operating from a place of trust, complete trust. Now, let's be clear. I'm not saying a 5-year-old has some deep theological understanding of God's provision. He was probably just thinking, my mother always bring me goodies. But isn't there something beautiful about that? He was experienced in my provision. He had experienced it before. He has expected me to provide for him again and again and again. And I started asking myself, have I forgotten how many times God has already provided for me, Vanessa? Because sometimes we have to trust God. We sing about trusting God. We preach about trusting God. We encourage others to trust God. But when it comes to our own lives, we start calculating and we start worrying and we start holding back and we start trying to control everything and try to spin this narrative, right? We start thinking about what if something happened, and we start to make ourselves fall apart. And then when I realize something, it's in my mind. Our brain are constantly trying to protect us. The brain doesn't necessarily care about whether or not your dream is big. It cares about whether you are safe. So when you start thinking about something new, the brain starts scanning for danger. What if you fail? What if you laugh? What if it doesn't work out? What if people laugh at you? What if you lose the money? And sometimes it is not just the brain. Sometimes it is evil spirits. Sometimes you are being led by something spiritual, right? So the Bible tells us that we must test the spirit, ladies and gentlemen. So test the spirit. So when you hear those voices or you have a spiritual awakening, test the spirit and ensure that you're listening to the right spirit. Okay? Okay. And I've been thinking about it as it relates, Sean, to my new business venture that I started. This business is more consultant based, right? And I have been thinking about rolling it out more boldly and not as quietly as I'm doing here and there. And not just a few people know about it who has my number, but really putting it out there across St. Catherine, across Jamaica. And I realized that I have been holding back. And why? Because I'm scared, because I'm worried about failing again, right? Because I have had this conversation with you guys after I've told you how many times that I have failed, right? So as a result, this innate fear is inside of me, and it is like a constant thought every single day. But is it a thought, or is it this the seed of faith? The seed of fear is being placed there, right? And what I realize is that I am trying to answer questions that I have no answer to. Because me no name God, right? We want God to give us the entire roadmap before we are willing to take the first step, and that is our problem. So we are afraid and scared and worried because we don't see the outcome, because what, we don't know what will happen next. But faith doesn't always work like that. Sometimes God gives us enough light just for the next step, not for the next 10 years, not for the next year, just the next step. And I think about my life right now. I am a mother, I am working, I am involved in ministry, the ladies' ministry at church. I'm very active in that. I am building my business. I am also passionate about helping children who are fighting cancer and helping families to get support and get the help that they need from overseas. So far, I have helped 8 children to secure place in different countries to get treatment, and that has become a large part of my life. And when I look at it, I realize that this is my life, this is my ministry, this is what I'm passionate about. This is the season that I am in, and I've been using my experience. At first, I shied away from it because I didn't want to be associated with cancer. I didn't want to be associated with that terrible, terrible, sad time in anybody's life. I didn't want to be known as that person. But this is the life that I was dealt, and this is the hand that I was dealt. So as a result, I decided to embrace it and I decided to use it because I thought to myself and I prayed about it, and God showed up and showed me that this is my purpose. This is my calling. This is how I am supposed to honor my journey. So this season that I am in right now, maybe the problem that I have is I'm not going to at the speed that think I should be going, or maybe the problem is that I am not in control of the outcome. And there is the difference between responsibility and control. I do my part, but I cannot control what happens next. God controls what happens next. And I had to learn to relinquish control and leave it into God's hands, because there's no guarantee. You can do everything right and you still encounter challenges. You can prepare and still have setbacks. You can work hard and still have unexpected things happen. So perhaps faith isn't just about believing that nothing bad will ever go wrong or nothing bad will ever happen. Perhaps faith is something that may go bad, but God is still with me. Yes. What if I fail? The question becomes, what if I succeed? What if this take off? What if this is my big break? What if people actually need what I have to offer? What if I stop thinking so small? What if I allow myself to believe that there is room for me, right? Because my God will make room for me. Sometimes you have to boast now your God in a man. Sometimes you have to boast now your God and say, yeah, he prepare the table before my enemies. Because yes, sometimes God want you to show off with the blessings and prepare the table where in before your enemies. And sometimes God tell us say, go and tell no man, because I know everything need advertisement. So when we say people, ladies and gentlemen, learn to test the spirit. And I'm saying gentlemen because I understand that I do have male viewers. Yes, even though this is called woman to woman, I do have male viewers. So yes, sometimes you are supposed to boast in a God and say, this is what the Lord has done for me. But another time you're supposed to shh. Yes, and we spoke about that last week. Learn how to shut your mouth. Learn when to shut up. That was our last topic. So I was thinking about it, and I just keep reflecting on what this child said. Tomorrow you will provide more goodies for me. So what if people are waiting on this very one thing that I'm afraid to offer? What if the thing that I am calling fear is actually the place where God is trusting me to show up? Because when my mind says they won't accept you, this don't do that, them are gonna laugh at you, it looks stupid, people are gonna chat you, those insecurities, those insecurities can be spiritual attacks. Those insecurities can be the opposition holding you in place and using fear to hold you in place. You have to ask yourself, You have to ask yourself, how badly do you want this? And you have to go before God, because I believe in God the Father. I believe that He is my Father. I believe that He provides. I believe that He opens doors. I believe that He gives wisdom. I believe that He gives strength. I believe that He still ordains steps. But sometimes my behavior says something completely different. Sometimes my perhaps it looks like I don't trust God because I am operating from a scarcity mindset, right? And that won't be enough. The opportunities won't be enough. There won't be enough clients. There won't be enough money. There won't be enough time. Someone else is going to get this opportunity. I need to hold on tightly because I am afraid. But you have to relinquish that control. Stop thinking about what is to come, because God is your source. Just like how this child can look at me and said, I know that tomorrow you're going to provide more goodies. So save what? What you mean save? It's the same. I'm not, ladies, I'm not saying you're not supposed to save your money. Please, I digress. But the same way this child could say, why do I need to save some for tomorrow when you will provide more goodies tomorrow? God is my source. And maybe that is why my 5 year old son unknowingly reminded me of that years later, tomorrow God will bring more goodies for me. Maybe the lesson wasn't for him. Maybe I thought I was teaching him a lesson of stewardship. Maybe the lesson was for me. Maybe God allowed that little memory to come back in my mind now to remind me that a memory can sit quietly for years, and then suddenly something trigger it, right? So God wanted to remind me that message was for my present time, for who I am today, right? This woman, that memory remind me of a version of myself that I need to recover, a version of me that expects a vision, that believe that there will be enough, a version of me that doesn't have to know exactly what tomorrow holds to be excited about tomorrow. I want to carry that into the next season. I want to build my business without fear. I want to build my purpose from the ground up without worrying about what others will think and if they are going to laugh at me and if they are going to chat me that a group chat. I don't want to serve because I am terrified that if I don't, and I'm going to miss this opportunity. I want to serve because I genuinely believe that I have something to contribute. I don't want to help people because I need to prove something to anybody. I want to help because it's a part of who I am. I don't want my ministry to be me trying to win people approval, because I can't work for God's provision. We can't work for God's provision. We don't serve so that God loves us. We serve because we know He already does. We serve because we know what is expected of us. We build because we trust that there is room that God has placed inside of us. And yes, I am still nervous. And yes, I'm still thinking about this business. I'm still asking. I'm still trusting God. I'm still trying to walk in my purpose. And if it becomes even bigger than I have imagined, that is okay. And if it does not, it is still okay. I'll adjust, I will grow, I will try again, because at the end of the day, I serve a true and living God. So today I am choosing faith over fear. I am choosing preparation over paralysis. I am choosing purpose over comparison. I'm choosing to do my part and let God handle what I cannot control. I am choosing to remember that little 5 year old boy that says, tomorrow you will bring more goodies for me. Because maybe I need to approach tomorrow with that same confidence, that childish confidence That childlike faith. Have you ever thought about why the Bible keep referring to us as children and child of God? Because we need to operate from that childlike faith. I don't know exactly what tomorrow holds, but I know who holds tomorrow. And maybe you're listening to this and you're in the same place, and maybe there's something that you are afraid to start. Maybe there's a business that you are afraid to launch. Maybe there's a ministry that you are afraid to step into. Maybe there's a book that you're afraid to write. There's a conversation that you should have, but you're afraid to have that conversation because maybe you're holding yourself back and thinking, what if? So today I want you to ask yourself a different question. What if the door open? What if this is what God really want me to do? Sometimes the miracle that he gives us is enough for today. And then tomorrow, he'll give you enough for tomorrow. And just like that little boy believed that tomorrow his mother is gonna bring more goodies for him. I'm going into the next season. I'm going to work, I'm going to plan, I'm going to prepare, I'm going to be obedient, I'm going to be faithful, and I'm going to believe that God will be faithful and his provisions will be there for me. I'm going to stop operating out of a scarcity mindset and start moving in purpose. Continue serving, continue doing my part in building the kingdom, continue encouraging persons to come and turn to God. Continue with my podcast. Because what if tomorrow really does have more goodies? What if tomorrow have more goodies than what I even imagine or dream? What if this is not it? And I want you to reflect on this story in the Bible where God provided manna for the children of Israel. And he said, what did God say? Don't store it up. Don't store none for tomorrow. Take just what you need to eat today. Make tomorrow provide for itself. So you don't have to know what everything you do. All you need to do is to trust God. All you have to do is to trust God and keep your heart anchored and keep your faith. And tomorrow, God will provide more goodies for you. May the blessing and favor of God rest and abide with you all. Thank you so much for listening. I love you. God bless you. Take care. Mwah! See you next week.